on all this success with Terrifier 3. You've given us like one hell of a badass final girl, and David's given us quite the horror icon in art. I saw you posted a video the other day of a little girl at one of the premieres coming up to you, like crying, just which was so incredible, and you kind of inspired so many people with this character, and you've given us this new final girl to root for. So, first of all, did you ever think that this character would have like this big of a reception? And has there been a moment through all of this that's really stuck with you and left a lasting impression?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for mentioning that moment. I was crying in that moment, and
Yeah.
even when I arrived on the red carpet, like as soon as I got out of the car, I heard someone scream my name. So I immediately saw her and I ran to her and I hugged her then too after I signed, and then she came up to me after and I hugged her again and I just held her as tightly as I could. And it's happened also at conventions, like I grown women too, like will they'll wear the costume and they're shaking and they're crying. And the first time it happened, I thought something was wrong. I didn't know because in my mind, you see the kind of movie that we're making.
Yeah.
I didn't think that that would elicit such a response. So I am so incredibly humbled, and I feel this sense of responsibility now, um, to continue Sienna's story in the best way that I can, because there are so many people that relate to her and align with her, and that's the whole reason I got into acting. It's because growing up, I TV and film helped me feel less alone because I was kind of a loner kid, and now if I get to do that for other people, if I help them feel seen or represented, that's the reason why I do it. And those are the moments that really help me understand what we're doing and what's happening, because most of the time I don't really think about it, but when I do get to have those interactions with fans or just young women, I'm so incredibly grateful, and it's my favorite thing in the world. There aren't many things that
Yeah.
have topped those experiences.
It's so awesome to see because I feel like there aren't really like that many like big final girls like you had in the 80s and the 90s. So it's like cool seeing this kind of like renaissance again with like you and seeing art as this like big icon, which is so awesome.
Yeah, no, I think we've definitely carved out a space in the slasher genre that's a bit more modern, so I'm really happy about that.
So speaking of final girls, obviously you're among the greats now. Have any of them reached out to you and kind of given you any advice or something they said to you that you can kind of take on for future roles or just something that stood out to you?
Oh God, I definitely spoke to a good amount. I Felissa Rose, who I guess technically in Sleepaway Camp isn't really a final girl, but she was in Terrifier 2, and she like introduced me to the genre. She really
Mhm.
helped me feel welcome. But since then, I've had dinner a couple times with Kate Siegel, and of course her husband Mike Flanagan, and she has given me such wonderful advice and mantras, and she's just so kind and lovely, and I'm a huge fan of hers, so every time she tells me something, I hold on to it for dear life. And of course, I just met Barbara Crampton for the first time. We've interacted a couple times online, and she's been lovely, but I think the ones who have made me feel the most welcome the most recently are Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton. Like they're so incredible, and I grew up watching them because they were kids when they were
Mhm.
acting. I was so inspired by them. Like even like Danielle in Halloween as a child, like her acting still holds up. She's so brilliant. And Scout in the Halloween as a teen, like she's just felt so relatable. And so I'm very close with them now. So I'm very lucky to know and have met the people that I have met.
That's so awesome. Did you have a favorite final girl growing up?
It's hard to say because I really loved them all, and even
Yeah.
growing up, I didn't really know that they were called Final Girls. I
Yeah.
just knew that I loved these women in horror, and and they just felt like real women to me that were just living truthfully in the moments, these crazy moments. But probably I don't really know if she was my favorite because it depends on the day, and certainly there were some days she might have been my favorite. But the original Halloween, in 1978 with Jamie Lee Curtis, I was so inspired by her, and she just felt like a family member to me. And there were certainly moments where she's my favorite, and then I'll watch another movie, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, she's my favorite. No, she's my. So it's no, they're all my favorite, truly. Like
Yeah.
I'm inspired by all of them.
That's awesome. I love that movie. It's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
So at the premiere of Fantastic Fest, you said that you called into some mental health facilities to kind of try and get a better understanding of, what Sienna might be going through. I thought you did a fantastic job, by the way. Your portrayal of like this trauma and how it affected you was honestly very moving. So how do you prepare for this new version of Sienna? Like how did that change? And did you learn anything new about yourself?
I certainly did. I worked with my acting coach, Brian Fox, who is my secret weapon. He's incredible. And I, gosh, how do I even say prepared? A lot. I did take. It's a weird. Acting's such a weird job, man. You take everything in consideration. I had to develop a journey for her because it has been 5 years. We don't really see her immediately after, and
Mhm.
I had this idea that immediately after she's probably still hyped up on adrenaline, but 5 years have passed now. So you have to decide, maybe where she's grown as a person. Has she regressed as a person? Has she taken on characteristics of her parents when they were abusive to her? Or I don't think her mother was abusive. It's established that her father was towards the end, but she was belligerent for sure. And I see a bit of Barb and Sienna in this time around. So it was really just examining the human condition, which is what I
Yeah.
found to be really exciting. And I would ask Damien questions, and I'd be like, "What do you think of this?" And sometimes he's like, "I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead. What do you think?" So that was really fun to discover with him. And of course, with my acting coach Brian, we would have to decide, like, how she would react to certain situations. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of discussion and discovery there. And that was my favorite part of the preparation. And you try to let it go on the day because you don't want it to seem too rehearsed. You want it to be just authentic and spontaneous in the moment. And I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So next question. I don't know if you can confirm or deny this. There's a ton of imagery and like religious aspects in the Terrifier franchise. My theory is that Sienna's father is kind of like the symbol of heaven, or maybe he's God, and you're like his angel he created with his drawings to fight against Art, who may or may not be the devil or the rule of hell. We even see like you have the crown of thorns and your hands healed. So it feels like we're being set up for this one big battle between heaven and hell. Can you confirm or deny this?
I mean, well, I mean, I don't know what Damien. I always have to think with these things. What would Damien say in
Yeah.
this situation? There is a huge imagery of heaven versus hell, and I think yes, Sienna seems to be the embodiment of good, and of course, Art the Clown is the embodiment of evil. Um, do I think there will be a huge battle at the end? Yes, I do. And that's, I think, all I can say about that.
Perfect. And last question. I know you have a big martial arts background and there's some big battles between you and Art. Did you land any real kicks or punches on David?
Well, the funny thing is, most of my fighting was actually with Bobby, who is Dave's stunt double. And I certainly tried not to, but there were times I'd be like, "Oh, Bobby, are you okay?" And he was like, "Oh, it's my job." But I did get to have those moments, those face-to-face moments with
Mhm.
Dave. But I didn't feel too scared because Bobby was an incredible stunt performer and he made me feel very safe. So, but we did it very carefully. Although I have punched Dave in real life. So
That's awesome. Is there anything else you want people to know before going into this movie?
bring friends with you in theaters if you can. Have a good time, and just have fun. Like we did this so you can have fun. So, and I hope you do have fun.
You definitely did. So thank you so much for meeting with me today. This has been awesome and wish we had more time, honestly.
Otherwise, thank you so much. It's so nice to talk to you again and to
Yeah,
meet you before. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
you too. Can we stop the recording here? I think it stopped.
Great.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure speaking, getting to see you again.
It's so nice seeing you again, Seth. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
of course. Bye, guys.